All right, here we go again. We're retiring. Again, my name's Arisa and I'm an alcoholic. And welcome back. We're doing, for those, was everybody here last night for when we retire? Okay, then I'll try not to cover it. What I wanted to do is hopefully you had an experience last night and give you an opportunity maybe to ask questions and such like that. Because the idea is hopefully about changing our perspective a little bit about how hard this is and making it doable no matter what, right? When you've had a baby, when you've had a hysterectomy, when you've had back surgery, when you've had whatever it is that's going on in your life, when your mother's dying, your father's dying, the Twin Towers fell, whatever it is that's going on in your life, can you still make time to check in and just let God kind of put his arms around you at night? So I wanted to first, before I just prattle on, but you know I can talk. That's not an issue. And we put an Ask It basket out, but it was empty. So I wanted you guys to tell me or ask any questions you might have, and then if nobody does, I will prattle on at you. I can give you, there were some handouts with some further considerations and things like that. I don't know if you read them. If you did, fine. If you didn't, fine. That's, you're right to do as you want. But does anybody want to stump the drunk? That's what we call it. Ask It basket, stump the drunk. Yeah.
Like if you ever find yourself like kind of in a slump with like what routine you're doing, do you find like you have to occasionally like change things for yourself to like get through a time where you feel like you're just not connecting?
It's a great question. So if you didn't hear, have I ever felt like I've been in a slump? Have I ever needed to do something different to try and, get myself out of it, basically? Oh, yes. And anybody who tells you differently is probably lying. I have had some incredible sponsors over the years, and every single one of them I've talked about this with. If you stay sober long enough, you will have dry periods. But here's the thing. Feeling connected to God is not the same thing as being connected to God. So I need to make sure that I'm showing up, that I'm not the obstacle. In fact, I wrote a prayer. I didn't include it, but I wrote a prayer that I used a lot, and I have used a lot, and I use it from time to time. And it's not a whatever set kind of thing, but asking God to remove what is the word I used exactly? The not detachment, but basically I felt detached. I was showing up, I was spending the time, I was doing the stuff, but my heart didn't feel in it. It was hard. I mean, you've heard, I've been through some hard stuff over the years. But just because I don't feel connected doesn't mean I am not connected. It's my job to stay in the path of grace. And we all know that it's easy to be distracted, but it also means I need to be working on where my attention is. So yes, I am not one of those people. There will be a lot of people who have said, I've been doing the same thing forever and ever 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 and ever. And good for them, if that works for them. However, I also am someone whose life has changed a lot since she's walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 21 years old. I'm 54. And my life is a lot different than when I was 21. And, learning to do the nightly review in front of a boyfriend, God forbid they know you're spiritual, doing a nightly review in front of your husband when he is the one you're upset with, doing a nightly review when you're nursing the baby. Nursing the baby was my prime meditation time. Morning, night, all through the day. I mean, like, if there's a baby on my, and that is like, because I can't do anything else. Actually, that's not true. I tried to sketch at the same time. And they're adorable little teeny tiny, itsy bitsy little sketches of the baby on my breast. But there were meditations too. Trying to just get present in whatever way that was. I meditate a lot in MRI machines. When am I not meditating is what I started to realize. That it is all about where is my attention. I love being in the garden, not because I'm a good gardener, but because it wakes me up, the smell of oh God, there's nothing more sad than a rose that doesn't smell. I have these really fragrant edible roses, and whether it's that, even the pain that I have, you may have noticed that one of the lines in one of the prayers that we did this morning was, I thank God for the pain that has opened my eyes to my real humility and lights my path ahead. Because pain is one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given. What? Yeah, really. And I was just talking about Sandy B. And I had to write inventory on Sandy because Sandy's been through a lot. But he talks about later in life getting chronic pain. I've had chronic pain for 54 years, right? And he was talking about turning into a complete curmudgeon about it. And yeah, try it for 54 years, Sandy. But, again, a lot of my meditations sometimes are actually, it's directed thinking. What am I choosing to think about? The Tape of the Month Club saved my life. It saved my life. Somebody asked me how I got connected with Mark Houston. And he came and spoke in New York not long after 9/11. And, or was it just before? Anyway, I didn't know him when I was in Texas. But I'm meditating in the morning, and I just keep hearing, call Mark Houston. I'm like, I don't know Mark Houston. I don't know where that thought is coming from, but that's weird. So I disregard it, but it keeps coming. And it keeps coming. And it keeps coming. And so I make some phone calls. And somebody gives me his work number. Nobody even knows what city he lives in. He moved around a lot. Nobody even knew what city he was in. And I get his work number, and I call him back. I call him, and he calls me back within 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm in the library at that, and I'm having to run outside. And it turned out that his home group was right around, just down the street from my sister's house in Austin. So that's how I ended up with him, because I was at a place where I needed something more. And I knew I did. And I did feel stuck. And I get on planes, trains, and automobiles to be with my people. I need to be with people that help me run faster. If I'm not a runner. I've never been a runner. But I like, what I know about runners is that if you pace yourself by someone who's running slower, you slow down without realizing it. But if you pace yourself by someone who's running a little bit faster, you speed up without even realizing it. That's why we say stick with the winners, stick in the middle, and that sort of thing. And so I haven't had a sponsor on the East Coast in a very long time, and I have, whether they've been in Los Angeles or Las Vegas or Texas or, all of these places that I am getting on planes and going to, and often to go to conferences and not to speak at them, but to go to them because my sponsors are either speaking at them or running them, and I am volunteering at them. I became Clancy's Uber driver, basically, before Uber was a thing. He would fly into Boston, he and Bob would fly into Boston, together or separate, and it's cheaper to fly into Boston and have me drive them to New Hampshire, Connecticut, Portland, Maine, wherever it is. I'm driving these guys around. And they make me look like I'm not doing very much. They helped me to raise the bar. And like I said, it was Bob who I wanted to bring that kind of a message in where I was. And I was like, Bob, how do I do this? Because he was sponsoring me at the time, because Mark had died. And he was the one, he's like, well, you've got all these universities there. How hard can it be? It was actually really hard, and that's why we ended up at MGH, because I found out that we had a Class A trustee at MGH, and he was the speaker for the weekend, and he did what I'm doing for you. Just, he did the whole weekend. And so of course I would do it for you, because that's what's been given to me. And driving Clancy around, and this old man, whoever, I know, you've probably heard stories about Clancy. You can talk to me after. I will tell you firsthand that a lot of them are probably not what you think. He was one of the most loving people I've ever known. He played the piano for my kids when he came over to our house. You know, he played the role of a curmudgeon very well, because he works with street people. And because he knows that a drunk that's been sleeping in the gutter for years the way he had been was not going to respond to someone who treated them like they deserved to be respected. And so he has this side to him that, you know, he literally will try to piss you off because he wants you to know that he lived in the gutter too. And there's a great story where he ran a homeless mission for a long time. He had a very successful career, and he started running this homeless mission. When somebody asked him why, he was like, it's the bad pay, the long hours, and the lack of recognition. How could I say no? But he ran this mission, and I've known a lot of men who've gone through that mission. And one told the story of, he was living in somebody's garage with his family, and his wife and his 2 kids, and they're all sleeping in somebody's garage. And the guy's trying to get sober, and here comes a van from the mission. And the guy gets out, and he pulls out army cots. And he sets up 3 army cots, and he gets in the van, he's getting ready to leave, and the guy goes, no, there are 4 of us. He said, yeah, I know. He said, well, what about me? He said, Clancy said it's not your family's fault that they're having to sleep on the floor. He doesn't get a cot. You know, he gets to sleep on the floor, right? Because that's how you get your dignity back. It sounds horrible, but the guy stayed sober the rest of his life. And he loved Clancy so much. And I'm driving this man around, right? We're up in Portland, Maine. The man listened to every single speaker. Every single speaker. He spoke for 1 hour. The conference went just like this one, Friday evening, all day Saturday. He's the Saturday night speaker, and Sunday until noon, and he did not miss a speaker. The only time he ever missed a speaker was if he needed to rest in order to give you his best. That's the only time. And when you're around people like that, who will tell you, yeah, you're not going to feel connected all the time. But we don't need to feel connected all the time. We need to make sure we're available to feel connected. So are you willing to suit up and show up, whether you want to or not? You know, have all that starter sponsor said, you're welcome to have all the temper tantrums you want out in the parking lot, and then just do it. You know, then you suit up, you show up, you're the person at the door. Sam Shoemaker, who ran the mission that Ebby was at, he's the one that wrote, if you've read that I Stand by the Door, that's Sam Shoemaker. And he also said the greatest of all fun is living out the will of God. Right? That's the kind of God I need to have. If I'm going through a dry spell, then part of the inventory I need to be taking a look at is, how am I not taking care of God's precious little girl whose name happens to be Arisa? Because somewhere, probably, she's getting ignored. The reason I don't feel connected to God is because there's something I'm not looking at inside of me. So am I willing to do the inventory? But also, a lot of these guys say that we all go through desert periods. You know, and if you're willing to sit, to wait, to be, oh God, one sponsor said, never pray for patience because you will get lots of opportunities. But it's true. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Sometimes the answer is no. Is my body ever going to quit hurting? I don't know. I don't know. And here's the reality. I need to learn to ask better questions, not get better answers. The real question is, how do I have a beautiful life even if it doesn't change? What if I never feel connected to God again? Is that really a good reason to quit doing this? And one of the things I often tell people is, if you came to me today and you have solid proof, absolute, incontrovertible proof that God isn't real, I wouldn't care. You know why? Because, oops, I had a beautiful life. Because if you really read the book, it doesn't say it's all about God. It's my belief in God. It's that I choose to believe in God, that I'm feeding that belief, that I'm not going to give power to the fact that I don't feel all zenny blissy. I don't have to feel all zenny blissy. I have to not drink. I have to choose a higher road. I have to choose, to live by these principles. I have to want to be a part of a we. I have to want to hear you. If I don't want to hear you, I don't want to hear God. If I don't want to see me reflected in you, I'm not listening to God. If I'm not listening to it, it gets tricky when you're dealing with things like physical pain. It does, because, take care of yourself can really, really go wrong. I don't sit on the sidelines of my life, if you haven't noticed. But that doesn't mean that I'm asking myself to do things that will put me in jeopardy either. So that's where kind and loving comes in. That's where there are times, I remember, so writing inventory, there are two entities that are always, always, always on my inventory, are me and God. Me and God. And I had a sponsor who said, it's okay to be mad at God, he's a big boy, he can take it. Because it seemed like heresy to me. You're not supposed to be mad at God. But whether you call it life, or circumstances, or it's just not fair, or that's really what it is, that there's some belief system that it shouldn't be this way. But it is. Things are exactly the way they're supposed to be, as evidenced by the fact that they are. That's all. Not that it had to be this way, but it is this way. I had an abusive father. I have these physical things. I had a feral mother. I have a crazy family. I have these incredible kids. What do I want to focus on? I have this body that is in many ways in pain and in many ways doing better. What do I want to focus on? I have this opportunity to be here with you guys. What do I want to focus on? And it doesn't mean that I'm always going to feel how I think. What does a spiritual awakening feel like? One of my sponsors used to say, you work these steps and everybody thinks great stuff's going to happen. But sometimes you work these steps and you end up with back surgeries, or, your family going crazy, or a divorce, or whatever it is. That if I'm doing this to get something out of it, if I'm doing this with an agenda, then I've missed the third step, because it's not my life. It's not about feeling connected. It's about going to God so that God can, because I can't. It's about not arm wrestling God anymore. Anybody else we got 10 minutes. I can keep going, obviously, but all right. I thought there was going to be a hand over there. No? Okay. No? All right. Then here's what a couple of things that I thought I would really touch on real quick. So when you go to bed tonight, I hope that you will do the nightly review and see, try it a bunch of different ways in the next week. See what feels good. See what doesn't feel good. Okay? As you're going through your day, if you're having a hiccup, try to do that when you can. If you've got something left over, fine. But the core of it needs to be about love. And God's always there loving us, like the sun is shining. The only problem is the clouds are covering it up. That's all. That's the only reason we don't feel connected. Or we're standing behind some big building and we're shivering in the shade. That's all. The sun is there. And if I can trust that it will come out, or that I can go outside and feel it, that this too shall pass, that part of it. So the real question is, am I willing to believe and be sure today, right? And so as you do this nightly review, look for the love, look for God's fingerprints, right? When you're asking yourself these questions, remember, it's not, it's not, was I, now there's a difference between getting angry and being resentful, just to make sure everybody knows that. Anger is a God-given emotion. You get angry because you need to do something about it. A resentment is when you savor it over and over again. Okay? Like if somebody is about to punch you, you should get angry. You should either fight back or run away. Okay? And then it should be over. My husband, again, he's this very interesting person. He doesn't get resentments. He gets upset, and then he doesn't even remember it happened. I'm like, you could milk this for a lot more. And he doesn't. And I don't understand people like that. I like to remember things. So that's what I'm looking for. Am I replaying the tapes? Anything you've got a video clip of that's still coming back, that you're pressing play on. That's what you're looking for. And so then if you see it, tomorrow when you start noticing that film being played, that's when you get out your remote control and you go, Disney Channel, maybe instead of Freddy Krueger. Because you do get to have some agency, because God is there and he's given us that power if we're connected. If the remote control has dead batteries, it doesn't work. It's got to be on the charging thing or whatever. And that's why I've got to be hooked up to power, because I don't know when I'm going to need it, but I will. And I like to joke, it's not was I, but where's Waldo? It's not did I make mistakes. Instead, it's are you willing, how about you have some fun? Inventory can be fun. I laugh at myself. The items can be so petty and ridiculous about whatever it is. I mean, I was just telling you, years ago, because I was talking about Sandy, why would I be resentful at Sandy for having what I have and talking about it? Because, but I was. And it was silly and it was petty. But there I was going, I don't want to listen to Sandy Beach anymore. This is ridiculous. I love him, right? Take my inventory and move on. That's really it. So it doesn't come back and bite me, because here's the deal. You can't take away from me anymore. You can only add to me. You don't have the power to take anything from my life. If I give you the power to, then that's on me. But you do have the power to be a blessing in my life if I am willing to see you and notice you and know that each and every one of us is just one of God's kids. One piece in this thing. I don't have to compete with anyone. Women have a bad reputation for competing with each other, which is really sad. They're all boys clubs all the time. They can help each other get jobs and whatever, but we're like little cats sometimes, and it's sad. We're not competing because none of us are playing the same game. None of us are going to the exact same place. Our hearts are wired completely differently. Things that look similar in your life and look similar in my life are still going to go to different places. I like to talk about Baskin-Robbins. It was an amazing place when I was a kid. I know it still exists somewhere, but I haven't seen one in a while. 31 flavors, I think, right? Why? Why do they have 31 flavors? Is it a gimmick? They actually make money off of all of them. I'm the kid who was going in and ordering one scoop of bubble gum with the other one of mint chocolate chip. Yuck, right? But somebody's in there with Rocky Road. I don't like chocolate, okay? I used to until I was pregnant with my daughter, and then and she loves chocolate, and my son and I don't. So we joke, she stole my chocolate. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And so just because I like chocolate, I want to think you like chocolate. Just because I like, the beach, you should like the beach. Because we all think alike. And that is a major flaw in the way I'm looking at you. And then all of a sudden we're competing because there's not enough chocolate for all of us. But if there are 31 flavors, and I'm the person who wants to try, the lime sherbet, which, was one of my favorites as a kid, there's not a whole lot of competition for it. Let's be honest. There's not a whole lot of competition when you really go after the thing that you want, because you're different than every other person. We really are unique. None of us are the same. And each of us has something different to offer. And together we make this beautiful kaleidoscope. And that's why the we of the program is the most important part. And getting connected to that higher power, whether I feel it or not, it starts with the we. I found God through my sponsors first. And then even more so through the women that I sponsored. And I came to believe more and more and more because of them. Not because of what I read in books. What I read in books is great because sometimes it gives me ideas, or sometimes it helps to reinforce, or something like that. But where the real magic is when I see you, because you are God. Each and every one of us are a part of that collective thing as far as I see it. None of us should be, just in AA, let's talk about, we're all literally, we're all miracles, 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 miracles. It sounds trite, but it's true. There's a hole in Texas I should be in, if not in the Amazon. I should be dead many times over. And yet I'm here. And I don't think it's because God loves me more. I don't. I ask people that all the time. Why do you think you're here when so many other people are dead? Well, God must have a plan for me. Oh, so he likes you. It's me he didn't, it's my friend who's dead he didn't love? That's what you're telling, no. I think the only reason that I am here, or you are here, and they are not, is because my heart cracked open just enough to say, okay, I don't want God, but I want him. And that's good enough. That's where we're starting. If I want to want God, if I want to feel connected, then you are off to the races and you're going to have a beautiful life. And if you just keep nurturing that want to, every relationship has an evolution. Have to, need to, want to, love to. I came here because I had to. I stayed here because I realized I needed to. I stayed longer because I wanted to. And eventually, I fell in love. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is the last place I ever wanted to be. But it is the last place I ever want to be. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Don't make other plans. God bless.
Thank you.
We are going to make it